Is a 10 an unusual thing to throw out on this show? How often does
It would
10
be.
out of 10
It would
happen?
be the first.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
Welcome once again to Chill Filtered, the podcast where we drink whiskey, so you don't have to, but you probably should. You probably are, and that's why we like you. And that's why we like these folks here, the Bourbon Van, so graciously coming on the show because they like drinking whiskey like we do. Before we get to anything with them, though, if you want to support the podcast monetarily, hit us up on patreon.com/chillfiltered and get on one of those tiers, especially like the $10 tier is great because you get to do drink alongs, which is awesome. We don't know how long that's going to be around because Cole does an amazing job with it and it's tricky. Other than that, hit us up on Instagram. That's where we reside most often if you want to get a conversation. Other than that, got the Bourbon Van here. So excited to have you guys on. Some more Pacific Northwesters here. How you guys doing?
great.
Good. Yeah.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, I have to admit, on our podcast, I am slightly less obnoxious than I was on Matt Madness. I got a little too fired up. I drank a little too much beforehand, and as Matt would say, I was schlammered, and it was a disaster. So
No,
But look what it did for your performance.
yeah, it moved you forward. Whatever works, you know.
Well,
Winners don't apologize, man.
Oh man. So here's my thing. I am not a competitive person if other people aren't competitive. And you guys were just so like relaxed and it's like, it's fine by me. And then lo and behold, I got the win over you guys. And I'm sorry, that sounded very prideful.
No.
Not at all. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
So as we're recording this, it just finished, right? Was it Friday night?
Yep, Friday night.
Final. Could you have even stayed engaged for that amount of time? That was
a long series.
When was it? March?
Oh gosh, I want to say it might have been the end of February. We're doing like the preliminary rounds. No, Matt is amazing. He's amazing. So Cole is like, he's the heavy lifter. He's like the brains and the brawn of our podcast. And I don't know how he does that. And it's just usually him and I, and he's just got to like, whip me into shape and get me in line. But I'm like, how does Matt do this every week? Get samples out, get all these people lined up and ready to go. So Cole's out right now. This is our first episode in July. It'll come out that first week, Monday there. So he's out for July because he's got a new baby. New baby's going to be born here at the end of June. And I'm like, I'm trying to like line people up. I can't do it. I have no idea how Matt does it. He's amazing.
I know it's really incredible. I mean, all the work like you said, to get the samples out, to have things to talk about, to have, what the samples are, what the questions are, all the stuff. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. And then to be entertaining on top of it.
And to be entertaining. Yeah.
By the time the show starts, I'd be exhausted. I'd be in a mood.
Yeah.
Like, we're done. We're done. Show's over. Sorry. Yeah. All right. So you guys are from Bend, is that right?
That is correct. Bend, Oregon.
So tell me a little bit about your channel. Tell me about your like whiskey journey. How did you get from where you've been to this glorious stage right now?
Accident mostly. It kind of was. It was I don't know. As far as our whiskey journey goes, we used to live in Indiana in the Midwest, and of course Indiana's in the Midwest, and Kentucky is very close, and it was a 6-hour trip each time. The cat wants to party today. It was a 6-hour trip to Louisville, and we loved it. It was an annual thing that we did. We had friends there, and so it was a nice way for us to sneak down every year when we lived in Indiana, and then when we lived in Chicago too. And then when we moved out west, we kind of got away from it quite a bit. And it wasn't until the pandemic when we kind of had, oh boy, here she comes. When we had more.
We have so many interruptions. Like I guarantee you, is the name Norman? Is the cat Norman?
That was the name of the other cat who passed away a little over a year ago.
I'm sorry.
This is Silly Mavis, who is a goofball and is very energetic and crazy. But yeah, on the West Coast here, we started to get more into whiskey again, and just needed a creative outlet during the pandemic. Decided to record a couple videos, see how it went, and thought if we get 1,000 views, that'll be cool. And then, or 1,000, 1,000 views would be great. 1,000 subscribers would be great. And then, beyond that, we'll get on to having other hobbies. And it honestly, it just got away from us. And now we're stuck with it.
It's a good place to be stuck though. No, so like Cole started the podcast with this guy named Adam. Adam got diabetes and was like, I'm done drinking. And the funny thing is, like a month before that happened, I had this dream where I texted him. I'm like, dude, I just had this dream where like you guys asked me to help co-host the podcast. And then all that happened. Then Cole calls me up one day. He's like, you're in, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm in, you just kind of fall into it. And when we started it, like we didn't have enough whiskey to drink. Like it was always like, okay, what bottles are you buying next month? What bottles am I buying next month? And since then, like we've got like just these amazing listeners who got my sample bottles were full. Like the shelf is stocked with samples. We got episodes for days, and it's just like, oh, now we can't stop. We like, you know what I mean? Like you kind of build a following, and you get people like a community going, and it's like the best.
And I was gonna say that's basically how we started too. Yeah. Phil was watching Whiskey Tube and was like, "This could be fun. We should try this out. We like whiskey, basically." And he wanted to do an Advent tournament. And what do you think? We had maybe like with 7 or 10 bottles of like.
We went from having 17 bottles to 34 bottles just to have an.
Yeah, we're like, well, if we want to do this, we have to buy some bourbon. So we did.
Like, but we know the feeling of the sample bottle pile up.
Yeah,
we've got so many, and people always reach out to us and go, "Hey, did you try this? Did you try this?" And I go,
"We're working on it."
It's hard. It's hard to keep up with. It's hard to keep up with. Like when I think whiskey is a cool community because people who really like whiskey want to share whiskey with people who like whiskey, and it is amazing. Like it's crazy to me.
Well, it's getting more fun too because of the exotic flavors. Because you've got terroir all over the country, and all these real solid distilleries have been making things and aging things for years now. So there's this influx, this growth of the available, quality items out there. It's making it harder and harder to keep up with for all of us. It's a good problem to have.
I was going to say, it's a great problem to have. Okay. So the bourbon van, we've talked about your bourbon. What about your van life? Like you guys have a house, but you have a van. So what's van life look like for you guys?
As often as we can. That's the thing. Right now, this year has been weekenders for the most part.
We've been trying to take a lot of long weekenders. We did a week and a half already in the van. It's not a winterized vehicle, so we rarely take it out in the winter, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, we would love to spend more time in the South over the winter. But for since 2020, since we started the channel, at least 50% of all of our time spent has been in the van on road trips and extended road trips. So we're not home all that often, although this year it looks like we'll probably spend more time in the house than not.
Yeah, I think we've been traveling so much that we just wanted to explore our own backyard again. You kind of get away from that because there's so many cool places to visit in the US. I mean, everywhere, but in the van in the US. And I think this year we both decided it'd be kind of nice to be closer in and then see more of your own state versus the other states. So
well, we also had big goals for the fall this year for training and for running and races and things, and that hasn't panned out at all. So now we're trying to fill our time with whiskey.
One of them's healthier, I don't know which, but they're both good goals. So I have to ask you this too, because I am ever since the Real World came out in 92 or something, I've been I've mentioned this a couple episodes ago. I have it's my, guilty pleasure. I love reality TV. I love, today I was watching Little People Big World, which is somewhere near your parts in Oregon. I love that stuff, but are there any, so I think I used to watch My Self-Reliance. It's a guy in Canada builds a cabin with just hand tools. Yeah. And then it's gave me all these suggestions for these people building houses. Well, it turns out it's all these van lifers who got stuck. But are there any van life YouTubers that you guys really like to watch, or is it just you're the best and no one else should watch anything else?
When it comes to van life stuff, I don't really watch much of anything. So this is definitely her.
Yeah, I think I kind of got into it, and I'm actually watching people that posted years and years and years ago. Now there's 5 years worth of content that I'm just catching up on. I think it all started for me. I found this couple, Eamon and Beck. They're Canadian.
I love Eamon and Beck.
Yep. And so we started watching them years ago. and they've kind of like transitioned now out of van life, and they've got their cottage and all the stuff,
medical stuff, and now they're like all carinated up, and they're all like traveling, doing challenges. And I told you, this is my guilty pleasure. It's like,
I know. And so I actually found Kara and Nate, I think, through a Patreon, who was like, you don't watch them? You should watch them. And so I started, you try to start at the beginning, but everyone's first videos are always so horrible, you know, like
Ours
until you get into the flow, like including ours.
Some of our recent ones aren't that good, to be honest.
So like they're trying to do the 100 countries, and I think I'm at like country 90. So like that was like 3 years ago. Like we haven't even hit the pandemic yet in their world. And so like I'm so far behind in that. And then the other one I really like is Bound for Nowhere, and they have a truck camper, and they're really cool because I think he's a videographer, like a professional videographer. She takes photography, and now they're getting sponsored, I guess, by like, you know, bigger companies, and they do more of these like 7-part series, and they're just beautiful. Like the video, you know, it's not just us holding a camera and talking into
it's not
it.
the
like,
GoPro
have,
and
like,
Canon handheld kind of thing. Yeah.
They know how to use their equipment.
Yeah.
And that's helpful, I guess, for running a YouTube channel. We wouldn't
wouldn't know anything about that,
but that's what
all right. Yeah. So they're videographers. Julie, you do travel marketing. I know Phil mentioned that. And Phil, what do you do?
I have a technology company, e-learning websites and applications.
So. Oh my gosh. So how during the pandemic with an e-learning website did you have time to do anything else other than troubleshoot educational stuff?
You know, once you develop some e-learning and you have a base for it, once you can put it into a template, then it's really just writing it and producing it. And that's not so bad. And then,
and your company's more for it's businesses, not
schools. Not like
right, So it's a lot of corporate training, that sort of thing, but also we've developed some specific platforms that my team manages, and so we design and develop for that specific platform. So it's really was just keeping it up and running and making sure clients were happy. And it was busy, no doubt, but we already had a really solid infrastructure, so it wasn't overly difficult to manage.
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense. Other question for you. So in a couple of weeks, I am taking my 3 daughters. I got a 13-year-old, and they'll be 6 by the time I go, with my father-in-law's Mercedes van to Yellowstone. Any van life tips you can throw my way of like, make sure to take care of this and do not ever do that?
It depends on the amenities of the van.
I'm sure it's nice.
Yeah.
It is. He got it built out by a company, so it's got like the traditional RV, like black tank and stuff like that. So
so number one, don't wait too long to dump the black tank. Do that when time allows. Don't wait too long, because we've seen friends who waited too long, and then you wouldn't want to be an inexperienced.
It turns into like a fecal fiasco.
Yeah.
I think my biggest tip is that the van is not where you spend your time. It is a very small place. So make sure you have things to do outside. So whether that's chairs to sit in, blankets, maybe, you have 3 girls, so maybe games for them. Totally. Because, obviously if the weather's not good, then maybe definitely games for inside. But, the majority of the time spent, you're trying to get away from being in the van, right? Because you can feel pretty claustrophobic if you're just stuck in there.
So it's bedtime.
Yeah. So it's like you try to live your life outside of the van, I think.
The beauty of van life is that at the end of the day, you're usually, even just like if you're at a campground and you're getting up only just to walk to the bathroom and back, you do that several times a day. It's way more outdoor time and walking time than you would spend in the house. So by the end of the day, you're usually wiped out and ready to crash. Yeah. And then it's not a big deal for everybody to get in the van. Yeah. But it's not a place that you want to spend a ton of time. And I would say, like you said, just get outside as much as possible and enjoy the fresh air. And
you'll probably like it more towards the end than the beginning, because it is a little bit of a dance, right? I mean, especially if you're putting 5 people in the van?
It'd be 4.
4 people in the van.
Yeah. My wife's staying home, so just
a lot of people.
Me and the girls.
Nice.
It is. So I'm planning on bringing like a tent, and I'll sleep in the tent, and then hopefully the oldest can sleep on the floor and the twins can share the bed. I don't know. It's like I don't know what I've got. Like, so I have plans to. I'm like, okay, we have a campsite for 2 days in Yellowstone, and then maybe we'll try to do like Glacier or go towards Rushmore if it's going well. If it's bad, we got one night in Yellowstone.
Yeah. I think my other tip is it gets messy really fast. So everything needs to get put away immediately.
Yeah, sweep it out at the end of the day so you don't, or in midday so there's not a bunch of sand and dirt that then gets into your sleeping bags or into your bed. And
it's just it's literally incredible. Like even we struggle with that a little bit. Like it's just the two of us, and I was like, we've literally been in this for 10 minutes. How does this look like this already? There's about to be a cat that's going to come flying through.
Oh, I love it. Let the cat fly through. There'll probably be kids flying through here in a second, and a dog barking over here, so it's all good. Like we have 3 dogs, we have 3 kids, twin 5-year-olds, and hey baby. And like we're no strangers to like how like I thought I just cleaned the house, like it's all we're leaving, and then we're leaving for Mexico tomorrow. So it's been one of those days where I'm like, nobody's allowed in this room, nobody's allowed in that room, like because I know as soon as someone goes in, trashed. So I can only imagine what the van's like.
It's an entire house full of caution tape at this point.
Yeah,
seriously, yeah. Like you don't use your bathroom anymore, use mom and dad's. Why? Like because I said so. It's Father's Day. Listen to me.
Yeah. So, just my one day.
All right. Well, I think we'll kind of move it along here. We'll get to our next segment, which we're going to do a little history. We'll do a little drinking. I don't think we've mentioned what we're having. We're going to have a Trails End 8-year, and we'll have that when we come back from this break. And we're back to another poorly planned segment by yours truly. I'll be drinking Trails End 8. The Bourbon Van's drinking Trails End 10. How did this happen? I'm bad at communicating. I was just so excited to get you. I don't work the details out. I do awful here. So I'll go ahead and go through a little bit of history here, and then we'll saddle up to some neat pours. So if I can pull my notes up. Oh, goodness gracious. That's the wrong tab. Doing a great job here, Rob. All right. So Trails End's philosophy, the end of one path forms the beginning of another. And that's not they say that's not just their philosophy, it's their story. Trails End is a true-born Kentucky-aged bourbon in charred new American oak barrels. It then travels to the west on the Hood River, to Hood River, Oregon, where it undergoes finishing processes improved with glacier-fed spring water from Mount Hood. And then they say what emerges is an instant classic. We'll find out in a second here. But I tell you, Mount Hood, you guys got to love the Northwest. Mount Hood, Helens, Rainier. I used to teach in Spanaway, Washington, had a view of Mount Rainier every morning. They're beautiful.
That's really special.
Yeah.
It is. No, there's nothing like it. You know, you get that when the clouds finally break. It's the most beautiful sight. I love them. Trails End has been rooted in Oregon since 1934. At the Hood River Distillers began by making fruit wines and brandies from apples and pears that were going to waste in excess production from the valley's abundant harvests. Located along the Columbia River with majestic Mount Hood as its backdrop, Hood River Distillers has been at its current bottling facility in Hood River since 1969. The company has expanded the plant for storage and made production for line upgrades several times throughout the years. Although the core distribution began in the Pacific Northwest, they're currently producing close to 1 million cases per year into distributing products nationwide. Hood River, it all started with the founder. Oh my gosh. You hate the weather pop up when you accidentally click too low. Gosh. It all started with the founder and 3rd generation distiller, Ben Capodivel. Did I say that right? Do you know that? Do you guys know this stuff better than I do?
I don't actually know that name.
Okay. Capodivelli. There we go. That sounds better.
That sounds great.
Distilled gin as a hobby with his father, Big Jim. After 10 years behind bars and in kitchens, Ben started making Big Gin, aptly named after his father's nickname. Today, head distiller Alex Myers carries on Ben's legacy. Do you guys know Alex Myers? Did you guys get to meet him?
The Alex, where is he now? Did he not move on to a different distillery?
He might have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they need to update their stuff. Who's the head distiller over there now?
Well, the people that we know are all Clear Creek Distillery. Hood River and Clear Creek is a subsidiary of Hood River, and Clear Creek does the manufacturing of this particular product. So we're familiar with smaller offshoot of Hood River.
Where's Clear Creek at then? What city's that in?
Clear Creek was in Portland until I actually don't know the full beginnings of it, but they have been in Hood River for a considerable amount of time. Part of the reason that they moved to Hood River is because it made it easier for them to get all the fruit and things for all of their brandies. It was like, what was it, 50 miles off of each trip with the trucks. So they just moved to where the fruit was.
There you go. Get the barges down the Columbia sort of thing. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for reminding me that I am not good at doing history.
I'm terrible. I only know this stuff because we've met them so many times.
I was like, we're like the worst at looking that stuff up.
When it comes to research, we're very flimsy over here.
Cole is the best of this. I'll do a Cole here right now. You may ask, what's he doing today? Well, today Head Distilleries, Ben Myers carries on a Ben legacy, adding his own expertise, big gins, curiosity, craft expressions like bourbon barrel, big gin. They do peat barrel, big gin, and other single barrel releases. The one that I am sipping is a 90 proof. It's about $43 and has won some awards, places like San Francisco World Spirits Competition. If you want to know more about it, find another podcast that talks about it, because I'm sure they'll do a better job.
I think Alex is distilling big gin, but I think big gin's up in Seattle now. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
You're looking at me. I would not know.
That's why I know that name, because we emailed back and forth. We were supposed to connect with them when we were in Seattle last year, but we got COVID.
Right. Yes.
So that was a thing.
That thing that happened.
Speaking of things, can I do a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Can I do a Julie cork pop?
Please.
All right. Trails End 8. Let's hear it. Ooh. That was a good pop.
I actually heard it pop, so that's good.
That's good.
That's how I always love when you're popping bottles, because like you're always surprised, like it was good or like it wasn't as good, but you're always surprised.
Still good.
So.
We abandoned one that we were going to post the other day because the cork pop was so lousy.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I was like, oh wow,
I'm not going to say the brand.
Like, it was so depressing, but I was like, that's.
Did you start crying?
Like the last thing you want to do is bring people down with an Instagram post.
I felt like we were like really excited for it too, and then we're like, wow, that was not great.
No, man, you can't fake the funk on a nasty dunk. Just go with it, man. Put it out there. Just like, this is real. This is it. All right, so you guys are drinking Trails End 10. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I can tell you the main difference between those two whiskeys. Number one is that, of course, yours is aged for 8 years. Ours is aged for 10 years. Number two is that yours is finished with Gariana oak barrel staves, and ours is actually finished in a Gariana oak barrel.
Okay.
And then lastly, you've got 90 proof, and ours is 105 proof.
Oh man, everything about 10 is better. It sounds like
we need to get you a sample. We'll get you a sample.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
love it. Yeah, if you get us a couple samples. Cole is. So here's the thing. Like you guys mentioned, like you come from Indiana and you're close to Kentucky, and there's like so many whiskey experiences over there. But I feel like that's something that lacks in the Northwest. Like, because it's like it's all spread out, right? Like, to do a bunch of distilleries, you got to like get a bourbon van and you got to drive to like hit up a bunch. So
it's changing dramatically, though. The Pacific Northwest whiskey scene is something else right now. Hood River has, what did we just buy? Wanderback and Clear Creek and Hood River Distillers. Portland has Distillers Row, which is mostly gin and vodka and that sort of thing. But there are some whiskeys there, including Westward. And then
I love Portland's Burnside Rye, like that.
The rye is
I always try to pick up there. So,
and then we're actually the week after sometime around the time that this comes out, we're going to be on the Wine Country Whiskey Trail, which is new in Newburgh area, wine country area. Why are my alerts coming through on my phone? There's 6 distilleries within about a 15-minute, 20-minute triangle of each other. And that includes Killdeer, Brixer, a satellite location for Bull Run. I don't know, six different distilleries there. Ransom is over there. And they're all very close to, I believe Dundee is where we're going to be camped out at. But then, just checking that out over the course of a week. And we're going to do a video on that whole area.
Oh, I can't wait.
But it's getting better and better. The Oregon scene, especially Bull Run in Portland, it's what a great place to go. You got to go if you get to Portland.
So what does Bull Run put out? Because I don't.
So Bull Run they originally, I believe, were all sourced stuff from MGP, and then they started finishing it in Oregon wine casks. Pinot Noir was the major one. Now they have their own stuff. They've got this fantastic rye. They've got bourbons. They've got their American whiskey and single malt whiskeys. A lot of those single barrels are floating around, and they're just a fantastic place to go and taste things because they have such a widespread group of things to try. You're not going to try 5 things that taste alike there. They're all going to be very unique.
Awesome. I will be looking for that video. So here's my one thing too. Like the other thing, like being on the West Coast, feel free to sniff and taste. Is there's just not a lot of like bigger whiskey events. Like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have like the big, whiskey tubers. It's all Midwest-ish, East Midwest to like Kentucky. And so it's like, I would love to be able to like, at some point, like maybe have an event like with you guys or other Northwest, whiskey folks. That'd be fun. Do something like that. Yeah.
We need an I-5 meetup or something.
West 84, I-5-ish.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
All right. So on my nose, it's kind of like molassesy, like a light molasses sweetness, little corn forward. Pretty light though. What do you guys get on your better whiskey?
There's definitely a rich there's definitely a richness that you get with the 10-year, but I will say that the 8-year, we don't have it on the shelf right now because we simply finish bottles of Trails on pretty quickly when we get them. But the Trails on 8, as I recall, is simply brighter flavors. The richness of the added vanilla and the depth of like the butterscotchy caramel on the 10 is what sets it apart, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I was kind of hoping I said, what do you guys get on your better one? He was like, it's just better. Like, leave it at that.
Just better.
No, so Trails End I'll buy pretty frequently, like when we have a get together, and like the bottle doesn't last the night. Like it is super easy to drink. Yep. The palate it's nice, rich, like sweetness up front, finishes with a nice mellow kind of toasted corn on it. But it goes down easy, like way too easy.
It reminds me a ton of Maker's 46, but with more of the corn forward note than the wheat forward note.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You guys got any other notes on the neat?
Toasted oak.
Toasted oak. Yeah, there's a good oakiness to it too. I think it's not over oaked, it's not under oaked. But again, I got 2 years in staves behind you.
I just like the way that it coats. Like overall, it has a really nice mouthfeel. I agree with you about the drinkability of this. Like even the one that we're drinking, which is a little bit higher proof, there's nothing proofy about this. Like the sip is just, it's sweet, it's oaky, the vanilla, some of that, gooey carameliness comes through, but it's just a nice finish, and it's just, it almost like freshens your breath a little bit as you're drinking it.
That's nice.
Which is nice.
Oh man, this is gonna be part of my morning routine. That's a great point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Roll over and grab the bottle.
Yeah, it's definitely the best mouthwash I've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I dropped a little bit of water, nose in it. It's a little more vapory. I think the vanilla stands out a little bit more. But other than that, it's like some nice sweetness. That looks like a very official pipette.
I wish it could be a sexier thing, but it's just plastic, right?
It's officially plastic.
Yeah.
Certainly.
That used to be my girlfriend's nickname in high school. I wish it could be a sexier thing, but it's just plastic.
Oh. I was going to say mine was officially plastic.
Oh. That's so funny. Phil always says that used to be my nickname in high school. That's
my line. That was my nickname in high school.
We can't get away from it. So like we do it a lot on the podcast. Bye, girls. All the girls are going to get pedicures from Mexico right now.
I actually think the water opened up the nose a little bit.
Huh. Yeah, what do you think standing out a little bit more?
The oakiness really is forefront now versus the sweetness that was on the initial.
That's a good point.
It was almost a musty oak before, and now it's almost dry.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I think drier too. It's almost like it has more of like a nose of like a wine, where it's a little bit drier in that sense.
I also like that you do all three, neat, water, and ice cubes, because we're big proponents of however you want to drink your whiskey, go for it.
That's the best way.
There's no right or wrong. I mean, because I started drinking, the only way that I could drink it was with an ice cube when I first started. And even now there's some bottles that are just too hot or too spicy for me, and I'll throw a drop of, 1 or 2 or 3 drops of water in it.
Yeah, there are some wild flavors out there.
Absolutely. So we did it's fun too, because like I was telling Phil, I don't know if you could hear me when you're off camera, but like we'll do it with bourbons, and very rarely does a bourbon with ice be like, oh, this is better. But we've had a couple, and I never would have thought to try that otherwise. Right. Even like 2 episodes ago, we did Blanton's Gold, and Neat was just like, this is nothing. This is not great. We added the water, so it basically turned it into Blanton Standard, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, this is way better. Like, I had a friend who just got a bottle. I'm like, man, we just recorded that episode. I wouldn't drink along with it. Just keep that one, because it's more like just keep it on the shelf. It's cool, but like, yeah. So I don't know. It is nice to do, but like, especially with scotches and Japanese, like ice is where it's at. Like you just open things up like crazy. Irishes sometimes too. So. Yeah, sometimes you get surprised by bourbon.
American single malts are what I'll put ice in that, especially like a real nice proofy one, like a Balcones. We've got a single barrel; it's 134 proof. The only way I drink that is with a just giant ice cube in and let it melt all afternoon.
Yeah, for sure. You guys ever do Del Bach? Have you guys ever had Del Bach?
We have not. It's very high up on our list of places to visit, and as soon as we can get down there.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, everything they do is delicious. Yes, no, like in. A little bit of ice with that sometimes it does wonders. Even though like their White Dog, their Old Pueblo, it's the most amazing thing. It's like you get such a different profile when it's mesquite instead of peat. It's delicious. And plus like you got a winter down there. You're not winterized. Just get down to Arizona, man.
Well, it's not sold around here at all. The only way we've heard anything about it is online, and then from matter of fact, the Clear Creek team. Joe, Caitlin, and Garrett, they talk about Whiskey Del Bach a lot. They talk about a lot of single malt distillers a lot, because they also make McCarthy's there. And that's obviously they're big proponents of just this single malt world that's emerging from American whiskey.
Yeah, no, if you guys do get down there, let us know. We've got Cole, because he's not originally, but he was in Phoenix for a while, and he's done the interviews there at the distillery and stuff like that. An awesome group of people. They're super cool. So if you get down there, let us know, and I'll have you, mule some stuff back up for us. So
yeah, you can do that.
For sure.
Palate wise with it, I think you lose a little bit of the mouthfeel with the water that you were talking about, but it's, I think it's a little brighter in the sweetness realm. The oak is, I think, a little less there. It was more on the nose, less on the palate for me, but still delicious.
I agree with everything that you just said. I was thinking the mouthfeel kind of went away slightly on that. I'm picking up some notes of honey now on the palate on mine. But yes, the oakiness was, for some reason, kind of switched there. Like the nose is very oaky now, less oaky on the palate.
There's almost a spicier sort of crackery thing happening on the finish now. It did take out, it took away some of the satisfaction of the finish for me. It's a little, it's just a little spiky now. It's not as smooth and lovely.
Yeah.
Which means like you're kind of closer to where the 8-year is with water, probably.
Yeah, likely.
Which just confirms I've got the worst of the pour.
To be fair, though, we have to say we do enjoy the 8-year as well. That's
no, the 8 is great.
Whiskey.
It is great.
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing too about being in Oregon is you guys are an uncontrolled liquor state, so you guys can travel to different stores and like they can order different things. It's not controlled by the state. Like this is all we get here. We only get the 8 in Idaho. So
well, we are also controlled by the OLCC, the Oregon Liquor Commission. So that's prices are the same across the board. Everybody gets the same stuff. But Oregon seems to get a lot of things. I mean, there are some oddball things and oddball prices, but at least in the state of Oregon, stuff that's made in Oregon, we can get everything. So that is nice. But yeah, there's definitely limitations to where we're at, but it looks like privatization is on the horizon, especially with the chaos of this last year and all the high-end bottles going to the the high-end people, I suppose.
So do they
Real Hunger Games stuff.
So does Oregon do like the liquor lotteries too then, or is it just?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
For some reason I thought it was all privatized already.
No, Oregon is real tricky the way that they do things. Even opening a liquor store, you have to first convince the OLCC that we need another liquor store in this area, and then you have to out talk all the other people that want to open a liquor store there. And so it's a huge challenge. You know, we would love to be able to open up a little tasting room and sell single barrels out of it. Something like that can't happen here. And our mailing situation is a mess here too. We can't ship things out. We can't have things shipped to us. There are some companies they'll find workarounds for you, but it's very rare, and the legality of everything is questionable. Yeah, well, we got to introduce you to our courier. Our courier does all of it for us. He's the most manly man. He's some might say he's more male than any other man, but he's a great courier. So that's what you got to do.
Love it.
Wow. You'd see him coming a mile away in Oregon, I bet.
Nose-wise with a little bit of ice. I dropped some ice. Muted. I think the sweetness comes through. Light oak. I would say, sometimes ice will kill a nose, but this is not killing it. It's still nice. It's still sweet. Yeah, you guys are behind the ball on this one.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, you were too fast for me.
Didn't see it coming through.
Well, when you guys are
real clean, you just use my hands.
That's how
my gardening hands from today.
You guys smells earthier now.
You weren't looking, but I always put a bunch of ice in my mouth and like chew it up and try to hold the best piece back, and then I spit the rest out. So like, you just using your fingers is fine. It's better than what I do.
Did we miss that? Did that happen?
Did that really happen?
Yeah, it did. You guys were just looking at each other talking.
Yeah.
Like that. You guys are so in love. How long have you guys been? You guys are married, right? Not married?
We are married, yeah.
Married. Okay. How long have you been married?
17 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
forever.
It seems like so long.
What year was that? So it's like 2007?
6?
Yeah, 2006.
Yeah. What's your anniversary?
May 6th.
I
almost forgot.
No, it gets hard. So so we're my wife and I have been married about as long as you guys. We're July 28th. Yes, July 28th. It's been that long. It's just like it does, and especially when you have a cool spouse where you're not like, you better not forget the date. Like you're just like, it's just we're us.
He's actually better at remembering than I am. Like,
we don't worry about the milestones, honestly.
Yeah, I was like, what is it? Everyone always asks how long, and I'm like, and then I'm like doing the math quick in my head. It feels like I should remember, but yeah.
I forget how old I am all the time. You have to tell me.
Yeah.
How old are you?
Quick.
Yeah.
How old are you, Phil? Julie, how old's Phil? Gotta ask Julie.
Am I allowed to say?
Go ahead.
43.
So we're right about, I think, how old am I? Yeah, I'm 42. So we're like same range. Class 98?
97.
Yeah, and Julie's got us both beat if we're, depending on how you're scoring.
I like how Julie asked you if she could say, but you're just like.
Yeah, just to throw it out there. That's
all right, so speaking of age, Phil, is the band getting back together? You got played on the radio the other day?
No, as much as, no. Those guys are all back in the Midwest and all have families and things. And actually, they all have families now.
Yep.
And we have a cat. So
it's not a family.
But I mean, comparatively, they've got a lot more going on than we do with family and things. But that was such a cool experience. It's been 20 years, and to hear something you wrote played on the radio for the very first time after all that is pretty wild. That was a pretty awesome experience.
Yeah, not just hear something that you wrote, but that it actually got played on the radio, and not just someone throwing you a bone. Like it really, locals night. I mean,
they picked it up, they liked it, and they said they've been they got a nice response, and so they're checking out the rest of the album, looking for other songs to play, which is that's all fantastic. It feels amazing.
I'm telling you, man, it could no longer be the Bourbon van, so it could be the Bourbon tour van. Like,
we're gonna have to upgrade.
We're gonna need a way bigger van.
You can pull a U-Haul behind it.
Right, yeah. The other guys can be in the U-Haul.
Yeah,
there you go.
They're back there with no windows.
You and Julie have been married for 17 years. You guys need your own space.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Occasionally in the van, I'm like, this van works for one person.
She wants me out.
So my wife's our twins have not been sleeping well, and my wife's been working like a longer stretch. She's a nurse practitioner, so like I was like, I'll just sleep with them in the bonus room. And then this morning I wake up, she sends me this reel of like, a good marriage is like when you want, like, newlyweds are like, well, let's cuddle. I want to cuddle you. Like, no, that's a hostage situation. The longer you've been married, it's like, we need the California king because the king's not enough space. Like, get away from me. I'm like, I was sleeping across the house. I'm like, thanks, Charles. I guess we got a good marriage. I don't know.
Yeah.
When we traveled to Europe last year, all the beds that we slept in, no matter what size they were, they had 2 mattresses. And we never
like
slept so good.
Like 2 twins or whatever, and then they just put like 1 sheet over them. But we were like, brilliant.
This is great.
Like, and some of them even had their own cover. Like it was like they were together. It felt 1950s. You know, like you always see those old movies where they like throw them together or something like that.
My grandparents always had separate beds. Like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I didn't understand it. But I'm like, I get the appeal. Like, you could be together all day, but like a good night's sleep is worth a lot.
Yeah. It's basically like good night, and then everyone rolls to the edge of what like as far away from each other as possible. It's so true. Like before, there was like a whole cuddle situation, and now we're like, see ya.
Right.
Is one of your love languages not physical touch, and one is?
I'd probably be more cuddly than Julie, but even I'm like, nah.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we're pretty even split. It comes in. It's never at the same time though. So it's always like, okay,
get away from me.
Yeah. How about a hug? No.
Temperature matters though, because in Bend here, it gets real hot in the summer, real cold in the winter, and we don't have any air conditioning, and so we don't look at each other for about 8 months. And then when it's like, real cold in the wintertime,
you do the awkward like side hug, like okay.
Good to see you.
It only lasts longer if like you're sweaty and you stick to them for a second.
Like, it's a little sticky in here.
You might stay together, but it's not by choice.
That's the best marriage advice ever. You might stick together, but it's not by choice. Oh crap! So my ice is probably not like more water, but I like it with ice. Actually, it's got like the longer it's sitting, I get almost like an artificial like cotton candy nose off this, which is weird.
There's candy on the nose here too.
Yeah. Which is really awesome.
Bubble gum.
I think it's more of a bubble gum. I'm with you there.
Yep. It's so fun. We rarely put ice in our whiskey anymore, and so it's always a little bit of not a shock, but like I just drank it, I was like, whoa, it's cold.
It's kind of a surprise. Yeah, nice treat.
It got colder. It got colder with ice? Okay.
Can't see that.
So that's how I like Canadian whiskey though. Snow cone of ice is just shredded ice, and then you dump it over the top. And you're good to go all day on that. I feel like this is like me trying to lean into what I was saying earlier, but I had no idea. I've never had this with ice. I like this with ice best. Like it is really light and refreshing. It's summertime, so I'm like, that's great. But also it's like got this bubblegum note like crazy on it. I'm loving this, even on the palate. Like it was there on the nose, but I'm like, it's on the palate as well.
I feel like I maybe put in too big of an ice cube.
That's possible.
Because it is a little bit watered down on our end at this point.
Yeah, it lost the mouthfeel.
It did lose the mouthfeel.
But kind of the big thing for me on the neat pour. That's what I like best about it.
But I do like it better than with just the couple drops.
I agree.
For some reason, the couple drops did nothing for the overall appeal. Like you lost all the things that you loved about it neat. Mm-hmm. And now this adds a different component. Like different flavors are coming up, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah. No, all in all, Trails End is awesome. So awesome, in fact. You guys, you've got a barrel pick coming out?
We do. It's getting bottled sometime in the next 24 hours, we believe. We went to Clear Creek Distillery. We hung out with Joe O'Sullivan and Garrett Trotter all day, and they gave us a bunch of things to try. Not just the Trails End bourbon, but also the Trails End bourbon finished in apple brandy barrels, which is the apple brandy is Caitlin Bartlemay's claim to fame over there, and all of it is there. I'll do everything over there, but her brandy is awesome. And so we tried a bunch of different stuff, ultimately settled on just a Trails End bourbon pick, no finishing besides the Garyana oak. And we're going to be getting it at cask strength. And we understand we're the only people that have ever done that before. So this is a big jump in proof. When we were there, this was 125.3 proof. It may have gone up since then, just because sometimes things change.
Count me in. And I messaged you guys when I saw you guys had that coming. I'm like, I got to get my hands on that. Because honestly, Trails, like I said, I buy a bottle of it and it's a crowd pleaser. It is gone by the end of the night and everybody's happy.
We basically tell anybody who's looking to buy a bottle for whomever, right?
Any occasion, yeah.
Any occasion. We love not only that they're local, right? So you're supporting a local Oregonian, distillery, but it's also delicious. It's like people who don't drink, bourbon love it. Like, maybe they don't love it at first because it's obviously drinking bourbon.
It's a good entry bourbon too.
Yeah,
it is.
A lot of good
stuff.
It's so
flavorful and it's so delicious. Like we talked about, like you can kind of just drink it and keep the party going without having to take a step back. Sometimes you drink something, you're like, it kind of affects you.
Yeah, it doesn't demand your attention. It's something that you can just enjoy and sip on, and it'll occasionally remind you that you're enjoying something because the flavors are always there.
Yeah.
But it's also not going to distract you. So is that a good description?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
Unless you drink as a coping mechanism, then you want it to distract you. But
right.
We don't advocate for that. Find some help.
Yeah.
Right. Go for a run.
Yeah, go for a run.
All right. So did neat water ice. Do you guys have, so we typically do 1 out of 10, like 1 to 10 rating scale. What would you rate and we always go on the best pour. So like whatever pour was your favorite, we go off that. What was your favorite pour, and scale 1 to 10, what would be your rating?
Would you like to go first? Is it the rating is just in general, everything we've ever had in our life?
It's yeah. I mean, like this is cumulative for your entire life. Yeah. We're talking breast milk to Trails End 10.
I love it.
Right? Like it's just like as far as any whiskey goes.
That's tough.
Where would you rate this?
Good.
I would put this right up at the top for me. The Trails End 10, the neat pour it's absolutely delicious. It coats beautifully. The aroma is incredible. The finish lasts forever. And that palate, it's so satisfying. It's so rich. It's so decadent. Mm-hmm. It was our Oregon Whiskey of the Year for 2021, the first year we did those. In the 10-year challenge that we did, it knocked out Jack 10, Michter's 10, and something else that was really, really good, comfortably. It beat them all handily. And so there's no doubt in my mind that this is a whiskey that is a crowd pleaser. It's delicious. And I don't hand these out willy-nilly, but I would mark Trails End 10 as a 10 in my book.
10 for 10.
Nice.
Julie?
I also prefer the neat pour. I just think that like all of those flavors really are more pronounced in that one versus when we added the water or the ice cube. I loved like the oakiness, the richness, especially in the 10, that richness is what you want in this pour. I personally go by things that I'm not so much dialed in on, history and like nuances of whiskey. I go on pure enjoyment when I drink for the most part.
Perfect. Yeah, you came to the right place because this history sucked.
Yeah. No, it didn't. And so I take that into, in this whole journey that I've been on, like I can appreciate really, age things or whatever, but this whiskey has never disappointed me. And it's the one that I've always, I suggest to people all the time. I really like, so I'm going neat pour. I'm also like high, Phil's like going 10 and 10. I'll go with a 9 just to, like.
Is a 10 an unusual thing to throw out on this show? How often does a 10 out of 10
It would be the first.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Well, I'm just saying, like, in my head I was thinking like 8.5, but like maybe it's a 9.
So I guess 10 is like the best whiskey ever imaginable.
Yeah.
You would go for it every single time.
I give 10s out willy-nilly.
You do. You're like, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So a 10 out of 10 isn't fair on my end.
It worked well with we drank the 10-year. We give it a 10.
10.
Yeah.
10 for 10.
Right. Across the board. Yeah. That would be that would be great. Say like the highest whiskey ever rated on this show.
Maybe pretend you're the Russian judge right now. What would the Russian judge feel?
Oh.
Philakovia.
8. Would you?
Yeah. I would say 8. Yeah.
If you were the Russian judge, you'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, if I had
doing ice skating.
If I had to pick it apart,
they're really particular.
If I had to pick it apart, I can name a couple of whiskeys that I would rather have in front of this one. There's not many. They're hard to find and they're quite expensive. So when you take all of that into account, this one's still very near the top of the list.
Yes.
I do feel like we're slightly biased because we love it so much.
No, so I'm with you. So here's the thing. I love it a lot too.
Yeah.
And like, I like, do you guys ever drink 2 Bar from Seattle?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So I think I get more prideful about like closer to home kind of things. And like, I shared the 2 Bar, but Cole, this is such a good bourbon. He's like, eh. So it's like, I very much like, you know, I think that's the thing I love about whiskey is like, you get soft spots for sentimentality reasons, right? Like, like it could be the crappiest whiskey you ever had, but you drank it at a place that you loved so much with people you love. And you're like, you just nostalgia, right?
Right.
So I love this one too. I'm going to give this a 8.9. I feel like, again,
decimals.
I do. Well, we do. Yeah, we can do decimals too.
Don't let him
do decimals. No. You okay?
He went in with a 10, and he's not concerned about decimals.
I give it an 8.9. I feel like, again, price wise, it's right where you want a bottle like this to be. $43, $40. Like that's easy to be like, oh, we're having a party tonight. We need a bottle of bourbon. We'll just put it out on the counter. Again, it's gone every single time. I'm kind of hubba to what, like I'm surprised with this with ice. Like I did, like typically after we kind of like do everything, I'll go back to my favorite pour. Went back to the ice. I'm like, it is bubble gum. It's like artificial sweet, which isn't always something you want, like when it comes to health.
Right.
But we don't drink for health. We drink for fun. Yeah, I'm like, I'm loving it. I'm going 8.9. It's a great bottle. And I'm surprised, like hubba to what, because I would never have drank this with ice unless I did it on the podcast. So there you go. That sounds good. All right. Anything else to say before we move on to our next segment?
I like the whiskey.
Yeah, you should. If you haven't tried it, you should try it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to our next portion of the show we have to call Whiskey World News. And we're back. Part of the show, we're reading an article. Didn't write, going to read it. Here it goes. This one comes from the Hindustan Times, and I don't know what country that's from. And it's written by somebody, no title, no author here. It's titled, Kenyan Woman Hides 13 crore worth of cocaine by dissolving in whiskey held at Delhi airport. A detailed search resulting in the recovery of her 2 whiskey bottles with cocaine, approximately 13 crore, which I looked it up. I did some math, is $1.3 million worth of whiskey in them. A 25-year-old Kenyan woman was arrested at the international airport in Delhi for smuggling cocaine dissolved in 2 whiskey bottles she was carrying, a senior customs official said on Friday. The accused was intercepted in Gandhi International Airport after her arrival from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on Thursday. A detailed search resulted in the recovery of 2 whiskey bottles with cocaine worth approximately $1.3 million dissolved in them, the official said. The accused was arrested and the whiskey bottles containing cocaine were seized. These bottles were handed at her Nairobi airport. She was suspended to hand them over in person in Delhi. The passenger was produced before a local court that sentenced her to 14 days judicial custody. That is the quickest article I've ever read on the show. It is also maybe one of the most interesting ones I've read on the show. Do you guys have any thoughts about smuggling whiskey or smuggling cocaine in whiskey bottles?
Okay, so this is maybe not a dumb question, but
there's nothing dumber than what we do on this podcast every week, so feel free.
But okay, you make it through. So say you make it through with your 2 bottles of cocaine-laced whiskey. Is there a way to distill it out? Like, how it's worth $1.3 million in liquid form. How are they?
I suspect because of the whiskey proof that all you have to do is get it in a dry area and let the whiskey evaporate.
Oh,
maybe.
Wow. I mean,
I don't know if that's the case.
Maybe I missed this in the article, but
there was not a lot of information in the article.
They weren't trying to check it. I mean, they weren't trying to carry it on, were they? Because I was like, gosh, how I'm good for for catching that.
I think we need to keep 2 things in mind here.
I'm digging I'm asking the wrong questions.
2 things. Number 1, whiskey's the wrong product to fake this with because whiskey's supposed to be clear. And there's no way that all that cocaine in there was going to allow it to be clear, right? It's going to have to appear milky. And I don't care if you're a whiskey fan or not, you're going to look at that and go, that looks like the grossest whiskey in the world. I need to take a look at that.
Also, you have to open it.
Right.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think we owe a lot to Colonel E.H. Taylor and his bottled and bond. The clarity of whiskey improved greatly, and that's what started us on this road of whiskey has to look a specific way. And so without Colonel Taylor and his and bottled and bond, we wouldn't have.
She's just in her jail cell right now. Colonel Taylor,
you faulted me.
Yeah, foiled me again. No, I think that we have to be pretty excited about that. But that takes some cojones to wander around with that much cocaine in whiskey bottles,
and not just transporting it like via vehicle, but trying to get on a. I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm sure you like rewrapped it.
Hang on. Did you say 14 days was what she was sentenced to?
I don't know if that's what she's held for 14 days at least.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you're only sentenced to 14 days, that's not much of a deterrent.
Was produced before a local court that has sent her to 14 days judicial custody. I don't know what that means in other countries, but I would assume that's like the arraignment period. Yeah. I don't know.
I was gonna say, because if that's all you get, that's not much of a deterrent.
We're in the wrong business. We're in the wrong continent.
Although losing that much kroner. What was it?
It says $1.3 million worth.
Yeah, I could see why that would be the deterrent.
I'm trying to think if this was obviously it wasn't a good idea, but like
that was very politically spoken of you. Obviously, this wasn't a good idea.
Don't do it. Yeah, don't do that.
Can we find out what type of whiskey though?
Yeah.
What was the brand of whiskey? Because I would like
given the lack of detail in this article already, I don't know if we're going to be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because it would be a real shame if they've been doing this for a long time and people keep seeing it and going, see, whiskey looks gross to me. I'm not going to try that.
Yeah.
And that's a shame for the whiskey community at large.
Oh, man. Wow. All right. Sounds good. We're going to move on to our next part of the show we have to call What Whiskey Would You Choose? And this week's question is, if you were going to smuggle $13 million or $1.3 million worth of cocaine into a whiskey, which one are you going to pick? No. Question for you, Northwest folks. And I'm just going to go you two. Typically, I'll answer two, then we have three answers, and then putting it on polls is tricky, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to ask you two. What is your favorite Northwest whiskey?
Can I answer the other question first? Because I would definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for that.
I would use Fireball because I have to think that people will get a tickle out of that once it's once the whiskey is removed, although it's not really whiskey. Once it's removed, the cocaine would have a nice little
cinnamon,
little something going on for them.
A little aromatic.
Just for your customers, you would
want that. But don't you think you'd be tipped off? Like if somebody saw that you were carrying huge amounts of Fireball, they're like, that's suspicious. No one's gonna check that.
I don't know. I bet that
no.
I bet TSA guys in India, that's a high five.
Yeah, okay.
That's my guess.
People who like Fireball carry Fireball in high quantities.
It's true. That's true.
Right. They sell it by the box with the spigot on it now.
Yeah.
You seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The party box.
Oh, the box, it's got cardboard around it, so no one sees how cloudy it becomes. It doesn't need to be opaque. It's like
good point.
There you go. The Fireball party box. That's what I would carry it in.
Yeah.
Off podcast. Let's work this business plan out.
We can stash it on the van, and all of a sudden we're mules. Great.
I forgot the question already.
The question was, what's your favorite Northwest whiskey?
Oh, right. We totally did.
Whiskey or bourbon?
Whiskey, anything. Could be a single malt, could be a bourbon, could be anything.
That's tricky. Wow, there's so many good ones. Do you have one?
Well, I haven't, so I'm, we're, wow. There's a lot of things going on up here.
Look at you go.
I'm trying to think about what we would consider all of them, the Pacific, the Northwest. So just Oregon, Washington.
I would say
go.
Idaho is technically Pacific Northwest.
Idaho too. Okay.
Yeah.
But not down in California.
But I can guarantee you haven't had anything from Idaho that you like.
So I am partial to the Trails End brand. It is one of my favorite. I'm just throwing a couple things out here, and then I'm gonna maybe get down to one.
Sure.
I also love Woodinville up in Washington. They do really great stuff.
Do you like their bourbon?
What did we have?
We had a bourbon, a single barrel that was great. The higher proof single barrel that was great. And then the next time we returned to it, it was weird.
Yeah.
But the cask strength rye that we've got is very, very tasty.
I love their rye. Their bourbon, I always get like a weird latex note off of it that's so off-putting to me, but I love their rye.
Yeah. We did that one in a blind, and it was shocking. It didn't win what the matchup was, but it was shocking to us at the end when we discovered it was Woodinville, because we had loved it so much originally, and then something,
maybe it was sun or heat or something, we don't know. That one was in the van with us for a while, so anything could have happened to it.
And then the Westland is good.
It got a bunch of sand and dirt in it, and you forgot to scrape it off in a half day.
Right, yeah, about 1.3 million particles of sand and dirt got into it.
Yeah. It's fair.
Westland? Yeah. Is that what you said? The single malt?
I was looking at the Westland, and I know you love Bull Run.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff. I mean, we're spoiled for choice in the Pacific Northwest, and we're just starting to realize it. Black Butte whiskey from Crater Lake Spirits is awesome. Made from the
I love Crater Lake.
It's so good.
Their rye special reserve is one of my favorites, but I've only gotten it once here in Idaho. So
they produce great stuff.
Their gin is awesome. Their gin is so good. It's my favorite to make. In the summertime, make our gin and tonics.
We have a little tasting room just down the street from us.
They make mini cocktails.
They make mini cocktails.
Fantastic.
It's good. Yeah.
And then, there's so many good single malt makers. Westward, Wanderback, McCarthy's and Trails End have to be at the top of the list for me. But I would also give a shout out.
You gotta pick one, Phil.
I know.
Time.
I was like, we're just gonna name them all, and then we'll run out of time, and we won't have to make a decision.
I think the Trails End 10 is as good as it gets. It's a fantastic bourbon. It's a crowd.
Yeah, someone once gave it a 10 out of 10, which is unprecedented.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard somebody gave it a 10.
Yeah.
I also want to give out a shout out to one that's like rising quickly on my ranking of Pacific Northwest whiskeys, and it's Oregon Spirit. They have a new bottled and bond rye, and it is so unusual, so huge. The flavors are enormous, and I've never had 100 proof whiskey with so much just massive flavor come through that like took me someplace. Like we were talking about, you just like a whiskey that reminds you of a great place, or the friends you drank it with, or whatever. And it just evokes such an amazing like memories of like sitting in my grandpa's house smelling his pipe and like that sort of thing. That Oregon Spirits bottled and bond rye is coming out. It's becoming more available out there, but top of the list for me is still Trails End 10. I love it.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, if I had to choose one, I'm going to go by the criteria of what would I pull off the shelf. Like, what do I have on the shelf that I would actually pull off and drink? Because we have a lot of stuff that we carry as more collector stuff that I'm like, oh, it's good, but I'm not going to drink it. And that Trails End really is something that I drink on the regular.
Yeah.
So you're both going Trails End 10.
I think so. I think that's my favorite.
We go through a lot.
Well, that's going to be awful for when I put it up on an Instagram poll. So thanks for sabotaging that. Which one's going to win? The same one?
Oh, shoot. We'll pick a different one. Okay.
I can pick a different one.
Yeah, Phil's going to pick a different one.
My bottle of the
Phil's
year
already listed like 12, so I don't think he's going to have a problem finding
His bottle of the year was a Bull Run product, right? Wasn't it?
Well, that was the Bull Run straight bourbon whiskey barrel strength won the Advent tournament for me. But the bottle that really is just a wild ride and a delicious bottle is McCarthy's American Single Malt, also made by Clear Creek Distillery, and we have a single barrel of it that's 113 proof, and it is absolutely amazing. It's peated American single malt, and it is awesome. So you can put that one up there for me.
Perfect. I'll do that. And here's the thing: is this is probably going to be our like worst poll ever, because like there's just not a lot of people that know of these places, but they got to figure it out. Like I'm learning from you guys. Like I don't get out enough. I got to like go hit some of these distilleries up, head over to Oregon.
I know. I feel like we should have thrown out
something more readily available,
like a Westward or Woodinville or something. So
Westland or something that's readily even Redwood Empire. That's Northern California. That stuff that could go in there too. Their Lost Monarch is real good.
Great stuff. Oh yes, it is. Oh.
I don't really consider that Northwest, but I guess it would be.
It's Northern California.
Yeah.
Cascadia, close enough.
Phil, you have shown yourself to know more than me time and time again in just the last hour, so I will agree with you.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. Well, we're going to close out here, guys. I hope you had a good time coming on. I hope our listeners enjoyed getting to meet. Hopefully you have this. You're not meeting. Hopefully you're like reintroduced to the Bourbon Van. Thank you guys so much for coming on. But most of all, listeners, I hope our love of whiskey lifted your spirits.
Most of our subscribers are voyeurs, as it turns out. We had no idea. Now we know.
Are you sending them feet pics, Phil?
Yeah.
I sketch them for our Patreons and I mail them to them. It's old school, but people seem to like it.